Hello again from the 2023 World Economic Forum in Davos, where we're here with YPO and Leslie Maasdorp, who is the Vice President and CFO of the New Development Bank. So, Leslie, welcome and thank you for being with us today.
Thanks for having me.
So let me start with a question, which is, let's talk a little bit about the New Development Bank. What is your main aim and how do you think you're going to get there?
In 2002, Jim O'Neill, he was then chief economist of Goldman Sachs, came up with the idea that by 2050, there'll be a group of emerging markets that will become bigger in terms of GDP size than a traditional G7. So the idea was consummated in a report called 2050, and in that report he came up with an acronym called BRICS: Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa. Since then they've reformulated, added a few other economies. This political grouping then formed a bank. This bank was incubated in Shanghai in China in 2015. So we created the bank as a startup then. Today it has done $33 billion of infrastructure, sustainable infrastructure investments in Brazil, in China, and all of these member countries. Since then, we have had a few additional emerging markets join: Egypt, Bangladesh, United Arab Emirates, Uruguay, and so on. So the aspiration of the bank is to become an emerging markets focused development finance institution. Development finance institution is like the World Bank or the Africa Development Bank or the Asia Development Bank. We are focused on development as our core priority.
And we're here at Davos and we hear the buzzwords of ESG and climate and how important that is. What are you as a bank doing? Is it something that's important for you? Are you active?
Development banks like ourselves have climate finance as a central priority. We have, in fact, in our legal articles of agreement, like the constitution of the bank, the word sustainable development and sustainable infrastructure is contained in there. So formally and technically, the bank cannot build a new coal-fired power station. So if you look at our energy portfolio, which is north of $5 billion, it is all in solar energy, it is in wind power, it is in battery storage, it is in hydropower, and so on. So we're very much focused on sustainability. In fact, the bank has a target now, aspirationally, that 40%, 40, of all of our annual commitments will be in the climate finance arena. And so all the other multilateral banks, the World Bank, already have a target of 50%. We are the leaders in climate finance as DFIs.
It's so pleasant and refreshing to hear. Everybody's talking and now we see action, and it's great that you
Absolutely.
It's focus and something is happening about it.
Absolutely. And here at Davos, as you know, it has gone mainstream. If you pick up the program of the Davos annual meeting now, you look at it in 2022, you will see the theme of ESG, of sustainability, of climate finance dominates the agenda. So it has gone from a fringe topic. Years ago, when I came to Davos the first time as a young global leader in 2008, this was really a fringe topic, right? It was a kind of a sustainability niche agenda. Now it has gone completely mainstream, and all of your big leaders in finance, whether it's Larry Fink, the head of BlackRock, all of the big leaders in finance, they now speak on this very topic.
So let's pivot a little bit and talk about your development bank. Let's talk about development. Do you think that development banks are doing enough? Do you think there can be more done on development for, banks like yours to really help it?
There has been a debate for the last few years by our shareholders. Typically the G20 also every year deliberate on this matter. Janet Yellen, the Secretary of the Treasury in the United States, earlier last year in April said that we need to do more. Larry Summers, who led a commission a number of years ago on the Center for Global Development, argued that there's a lot more that development banks can do. In fact, there's an argument today that these development banks need to transform themselves into more focused climate banks, meaning that all of our development activities must be geared towards the climate agenda. So our shareholders are calling on us to increase the scale of our ambition, and I think it is happening. Last year, for example, the G20 put together a new commission, and the sole purpose of that commission was to look at what more can development banks do, and this involves everything from looking at our risk metrics, looking at our capital adequacy, and so on.
I want to push you a little bit further, right? We've talked a little bit about climate, we've talked about development. Let's talk a little bit about the Paris Agreement, right? If I go back to the Paris Agreement, you see that finance had a key role to play. Now, you are in the center, in the midst of everything happening. Do you feel that development banks and banks in general are actually living up to the expectations of them leading the finance in order to bring about this climate change faster all around the world?
I think since 2015, look, 2015 was a defining year and a defining milestone in the agenda to fight climate change, because that's a legally binding undertaking that the world effectively signed. I think every year incremental steps were taken, and it culminated in Glasgow. I mean, I would say Mark Carney, the former governor of the Bank of England, probably he was the face of the transformation of finance, because he came up with some radical ideas and then led the path for the partnership that was consummated in Glasgow about a year and a half ago or so. The ambition is there. Everybody recognizes that the finance has a critical role to play. We kind of the arteries, if you like, of the world economy. What we do in finance can impact on every manufacturing company, every steel company, every mining house. For example, if we say we will no longer finance coal-fired power stations, no one can build a coal-fired power station because you need money capital to do that. So the role of finance is definitely critical in the transition. We are not quite there yet, but significant steps have been taken to use finance as a lever to accelerate the process of transformation towards net zero.
Leslie, if I may close with a question. You're a young global leader. You're what I call a veteran of Davos. You've been here for more than 10 years. What do you think is the one issue that should be addressed in the World Economic Forum this year?
As I mentioned earlier on, climate has to be center stage. We will have short-term divergence and distractions. Today, as you know, over the last few days, the geopolitical issues certainly center stage. Secondly, the energy shortages and energy insecurity in the world is a major issue. Food insecurity, which also culminates out of the Russia-Ukraine situation. All of these are really short-term issues, but the structural changes revolves around our efforts to deal with the climate agenda. It is center stage, but there is a diversion away from that main theme because of the more immediate issues. Inflation is real. People cannot afford to pay their gas bills in many parts of the world today as a consequence of the geopolitical situation.
Leslie, thank you so much for being with us today, and I hope to have the pleasure of continuing the conversation with you in the future.
Thanks.
Thank you for being with us.
Thank you.
Thank you.